Well, my dear brothers and sisters, it is after hours somewhere on planet Earth. Might be dawn where you are, but it's still after hours somewhere. So I'm here with the great Mr. George, and we are going over the course of the next hour, hang out with you all, talk about what you all want to talk about, investigate what you all want to investigate, and whether it's something going on a broad or narrow scale, something happening right now, something that you anticipate will be happening. Keep in mind, though, folks, that when we're talking about COVID-19, we always have to defer to the WHO. So whatever we say here, we're going to make sure that Susan and the lazy Susans at YouTube get the answers that they like. Now, I understand that others have talked about COVID-19 and they are speculating and they're doing things, saying things, predicting things that are at odds with the WHO. But we are, this particular corner of the white positive sphere is under quite a lot of attack because we are having success. So we are going to make sure that we are within their bounds. Now, if we say anything, we might say that someone else said something. And of course, if it's at odds with the WHO, it's obviously wrong. But nevertheless, let me welcome Mr. George here tonight in After Hours. How are you, brother?
I'm doing well. I love it how when we're audio only like this, you seem to have this instinct to start the show with, it's after hours somewhere, kind of giving a little hint to the other show format. Yeah. We haven't done it in a while. Some people who are new to us have never even heard. And that is when we purposely do audio only and call it It's Late Night Somewhere. And it has the feel of a late night radio show. And the fact that no one is on camera, even content producers and figures who normally would be on camera, the fact that they're not on camera sometimes brings a little something out. We use that to really just speculate, and it's just kind of a parlor room discussion. But maybe we need to do one soon. It's funny because it's fun. It's almost like we're hinting at one now.
Yeah,
we usually have a guest, but we actually have done a few of those. It's Late Night Somewheres with just the two of us.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, if you want to go see what I'm talking about, check Tap TV, the afterparty.tv, because they're all there. But yeah, we're audio only tonight and hanging out. Everybody, there's a lot of strikes and different speed bumps they've been putting up. So please do share the links. I'm putting one in the chat. This is the main Tap TV site link where you can watch it right on the site. It has the YouTube listings. Actually, it's only the secondary YouTube channel that's listed there now that we're on DLive and other platforms too. So if you want to check out alternative platforms, but we do recommend those alternative platforms, and especially just watching it right on the site through Entropy. If you can do that, let us know any feedback of what your experience is like watching it on the site too, because Entropy was so great in helping us set that up. We were the first to ever do this, where you can watch a stream right on our site. But we're still working out some kinks.
Yeah.
So let us know what it's like for you.
Indeed. Well said, brother. And I just opened the DLive. Entropy is not going to be able to work for us tonight because the channel through which we use Entropy has been given a strike for hate speech that didn't happen.
So forget what I just said. It's not on the site tonight, but
yeah, actually
all the listings are there.
The means by which that you can support the work that we're doing for White Wellbeing tonight has been narrowed all the way down to one, which is Cash App. And if otherwise, you're going to have to wait. And we will actually, no, you can still financially gift on the gardening Entropy. You just won't be able to watch the show there. So you can financially gift there and ask questions. And I will pull that up right now. I also pulled up DLive so that I could keep an eye on all of the rapscallions over on DLive. And a big hello to everyone over there, and see if we can pull some people in and piss off some anti-whites over on that platform. Let them all know that we're here and we are causing all kinds of trouble, willing to go places where the establishment does not want us heretics to go. Bartleby is here, says hello to you. Arta, Jesse, Mike, Ambrielle, Popcorn Power. So many wonderful folks here tonight. And if you want to tag me tonight, Red Pill Bulgaria, great to see you. And JK160, Apollo as well. If you want to tag me tonight, you can do it on the Discipline channel by tagging me as No White Guilt. I'll be able to see the chat if you tag me as No White Guilt tonight. So we'll be looking for those questions and those comments, and I will pull up the entropy right now, just in case.
Yeah, you made a good point, and that's something everyone let people know, where even if you can't watch it on entropy, given a weird situation like tonight, the cool thing about entropy is you can always super chat a question even when we're not streaming. It's just always there. It's always a feature via entropy, and you can send donations that way as well. They use something a little more secure to send the financial gifts along, so it is a little more stable. So you can get in those gifts and you can ask questions at entropy at any time, even if you can't sleep and it's 4 a.m. somewhere and we're not streaming. You want to ask a question to be in the queue for next time, you could do it on entropy.
Precisely. I'm moving it over right now and have it up, so we will be able to see everything that goes on there. And Mrs. Jess Horst is here. A big hello to you and salute to you, dear lady. So what do you all want to talk about? Do you have any specific topics, specific news? Are you interested in the undead little gentleman on the, or I shouldn't say gentleman, little guy on the other side of the world, as though that matters? Are you interested in the lockdown? Are you interested, when we talk about these things, remember, we'll tell you what somebody else thinks, and then we will tell you that if it's at odds with the WHO, it is wrong. You know, Jared, I was asked by the great Luke Mason whether or not the people at the WHO were whoish, and the other night, and I guess they might be.
Is that a Dr. Seuss reference?
It might be. It might be a Dr. Seuss reference, but let me see. We do have, there were a little bit earlier, there were a couple different conversations going on. This is Jess Horst saying hello on the internet. A couple pieces of news going on. I know there was a bit of a debate earlier about, what's worse, and what do you all think is worse? The infection at this point? Now, this is a kind of almost a silly thing to ask because we're in the middle of a fog of war. So I'm giving absolutes in the middle of the fog of war is a bit silly, but
yeah, agreed.
Nonetheless, there are some, there are people with struggling out there, obviously, with the sickness, people struggling with with losing their jobs. But I will tell you this: the states are opening. And I guess it was Georgia was last week. West Virginia is coming up. A number of states, Texas. And are you in a state that is opened? Has hell on earth descended as a consequence of it? Virginia, I believe, is going to be opening on the 1st, or at least many of the businesses are. I don't know if that's in contradiction to what Ralph, the governor here, has said. The anti-white governor, he would like everybody to stay home. Of course, we have this video that is up right now about this Carol. Now, what I want to say about Carol, first of all, this so-called doctor is the one saying that what we have to do is get rid of all the whites in America. I have to say, of course, do not harass this woman. And Susan and the lazy Susans out there, we are telling folks to not harass Carol, even though she is calling for white erasure in this video, and we shared that the other day. So that is my wish for you all. If you decide to do something else, then that is purely up to you. White Healing is here, and the great Fernal.
We could talk about that video for a minute too.
Yeah, please. I know you saw it, Jared, and what were your thoughts on it?
Well, everyone, please do go watch it. It's just a 2-minute video, the kind of thing that makes your blood boil. So maybe don't watch it when you're eating, but Which is something we need to see and something we already know, but it helps to reiterate these things about how blatant it can be that a doctor just gets up and says, essentially, you should still watch it, but I'll give you a spoiler, essentially saying that she's in Houston and it's the white people who are the only ones who really resist vaccinations. And she's like, we just have to get rid of the white people. Now, her last name's Baker. I don't know what her background is. She may well be white. She may have other things going on. I know everybody tries to kind of be a detective with that, but you have to come to terms with the fact that there are people who are pure-blooded white people who are very, very, very mentally and spiritually sick. There are white people who say that. We can't just go justify it by saying, oh, they must be a fellow white, whatever you want to say. I watched it and I couldn't help but think of times when I have said the very thing that she is saying, but sometimes I've been met with resistance, not too much, but sometimes commenters think that I'm giving white people too much credit when I say that we are the people who most have a drive for freedom. And we've talked about this. This is one of the first things, Jason, you and I used to talk about when we first started our show. Some of the earliest shows of TAP and the streams, the nascent streams that became TAP with a bunch of friends, were the questions about individuality versus collectivism were in the air at that time. People were debating the finer points of that. So I remember you and I discussing that a lot, and we both had a very similar take that you can't separate these two things, that they're woven together. It's just our particular style of how Westerners do those things. So, as I mentioned, I've gotten some resistance when people say, you're giving us too much credit. Maybe we used to be like that, but we don't have that resistance. That's not quite true. There's still that spirit in us, and it's handed down to us through the generations, where we want to make our mark. We don't trust decentralized or faraway authority. There's all kinds of reasons for it. In fact, as a small plug, my next Red Ice video coming out soon, maybe within a week or two, will be about this very thing, about freedom. So on the one hand, there are some of us, like these people who resist vaccines, that are the thorn in the side of this woman that just wants these people to do as she says. And we're not even saying one thing or the other about vaccines. You do your own research, not even making a statement about that. But it's more the independent spirit that I'm going to do my own research. I'm going to look into this myself. I want my own space, mentally, physically, spiritually, is something that is a trait in our people. However, the other side of that coin is true too. The people who critiqued me, they're not incorrect, and I acknowledge that as well, because a lot of our people have been browbeaten and have been infected with the meme pathogens, with the sickness. And there are a lot of us who are too docile and are maybe giving in too much to that other side of us that is empathetic, wants to understand the other side, and so just kind of goes along with this stuff. Because the other lesson there is, we might be appalled at hearing the message of this woman talking openly, a woman with a high position, prestige in her field, talking openly, literally saying things like there shouldn't be white people. But at the same time, we need to understand the fact that our own people's complacency and ability to be infected with this has allowed it to get to this point to begin with. So on the one hand, you have our independent spirit. On the other hand, you have our empathy, our openness, our ability to project ourselves into other people. This is one of my biggest things. One of the reasons I named my whole thing The Great Order. I see those two poles as separate right now. And in some of our people they have one and not the other. And the thing is, we need to be able to weave both of these traits. Both of these traits are in us. They're not going away. They're part of our nature. And like anything, it's a two-edged sword. So it can hurt you, it can help you. You need to know how to wield it In our people, there's a split consciousness. Some of us are all one way, some of us are all the other way. We have these twin strands of empathy on the one hand and that fierce, independent, individual spirit on the other. We need to weave those two back together. It's like how you attach the positive and negative ends on the when you're jump starting a car to the car battery with the cables. You know, everything in life, you need that interplay of poles. And like so many things in the modern world, there's other examples we can use too, but the kind of the psychic break in us as a people, this is one of the main things. So that's how both statements can be true. On the one hand, it is true to say that we are the people, because of our headstrong nature, our individual nature, standing most in the way of this. Anyone who has an instinct, any psychopathic leader who has an instinct to want to lord over people and just have everyone be groveling under them, the people who want to move towards this kind of gray, bland, consumerist globalism that we all talk about all the time. It's absolutely true to say that we are the people standing in the way of that. It's equally true to say that enough of our people are sick and that we're acquiescing to all of the hate, all the kinds of things you see in this video that are being levied towards us. So both things are true. One does not negate the other. Again, it just shows the fact that there is a split in us. We need, as individuals, in our own bodies, in our own minds, and then as a people, as collectives, to understand our natures, weave these things back together. That's why I think it is so important to constantly be looking at our character and not to live in the past, but we do see these characteristics portrayed in our customs or in our old stories. So it does help to look back to those things, to know how we can take those traits into the present. So I kind of, it's a more philosophical musing on it, but because it kind of hit on some things that I've encountered or conversations that I've had, that's kind of the 30,000 foot view of what that latest presentation made me think of. So I hope that makes sense to people. As I said, there'll be some more musings on it in the Red Ice video. I'm curious what you think of that, Jason.
Well, I was seeing just visually in my mind's eye the caduceus or the strands of the DNA.
Same.
And it's like these parallel aspects of magnetism of our spirit, and they have, for some, have really become imbalanced. And of course, the imbalancing element is Antiwhiteism. And I notice here that White Healing mentioned that James Fox, Rational Rise TV, was praising Going Free on his show. And somebody sent, I think, this link. And thank you very much to that gentleman, good gentleman. And I'll be watching this. I understand this guy, James, is he Australian? He had some positive words about the positivity and how we're working exactly what you're talking about, Jared, bringing this imbalance back to harmony by identifying the agents that disharmonize our spirit, our minds, our bodies. And we can then be, again, a strong people. We are the people, by the way, and I will be responding to, I was also sent these videos that Martin Sellner has made, and somebody clipped out a segment. I haven't been able to watch them yet, so I can't speak to them. I can only speak to the segment where Martin says that something along the line of, there's in the Anglosphere, there is nobody who is action oriented. Nobody. Well, he definitely has not heard of Going Free, and I would credit that to all of the suppression and oppression and everything the anti-whites have been doing to him and his new wife. And so he's obviously been focused very intently on the foreground and finding out how they're going to get by the next day. But there's definitely something positive, definitely something constructive. We are the exact opposite of what in that little clip I saw him referring to. And if he thinks, this is to a degree, and I'll just mention this, and maybe I'll mention this I think what I'll probably be doing is just publicly tweet him and see if we can get his attention and to have a look at Going Free. But we were hanging up banners when he was still at his mother's breast. And we were putting them on bridges. We were putting them in the chain link above bridges. We were posting. I had many of different types of projects that we employed that were very successful, manipulated the establishment media. So posting banners, and this is tried and true. And I salute all of the great work that he and his comrades were able to accomplish. However, what ended up happening? Ladies and gentlemen, you all know this, and you all can chime in right away. You know exactly what I'm talking about. They didn't have a psychological defense for the psychological warfare waged against them. They weren't building a culture around that tool to heal and cure themselves and move forward. And what did they end up doing? They brought a lot of attention to themselves, and that attention was the regime. And what did the regime do? How many of these guys went to jail? How many of these people's lives were ruined by, instead of focusing on these most important elements to a community, psychological defense and culture creation, working on the individual and seeking for, endeavoring for the well-being of the individual by way of the community. They did not have that. And yes, I know they went camping. That's not enough. Yes, I know they had beautiful signs. That's not enough. Yes, I know that they went on hikes together, and they had wonderful little like family videos of that sort of thing. And that's all wonderful. But if you don't have these substantive things, you're going to end up like glass. And the regime's going to come along as it did, as I has continued to say and will continue to say, with every vehicle that has gone before. These are the elements that are missing. And if we don't, Mr. George was speaking to them brilliantly, if we don't address them, then it's not going to do us any good to get up on the top of a mosque or whatever it might be, the top of the Empire State Building, and drop a banner that's 30 stories long and get great video of it. All that's going to end up doing is the FBI and Homeland Security and all of these sorts of people are going to show up at the homes of the people who did that. They're going to confiscate all of their media devices. Then they're going to come to them and say, here's our blackmail material. And you're going to say, well, what do you mean? You're supposed to be the good guys. You wouldn't do something like that. And they say, oh, yeah, we have your naughty conversations you've had with your wife. We have the pictures of that you sent to your wife. We have, we know that you owe and are behind on your mortgage payments, and we know we can make that go away. And so all you do is open yourself up to being shattered by the regime. So good on them for all of the good that they did do, the lives that they did improve. And we will be able to build something with a foundation much firmer, and no need to remember. They're resorting to these sort of large scale tactics, the same reason we resorted to it many years ago, because there wasn't a curative contagion to spread from person to person. Now we have that. What we were doing then, what they did a couple years ago, was, hey, we can't get on the TVs, we can't own the billboards, we can't get on the radio, so let's just put up a big banner, and some people will see it. And then, of course, everybody knows what ended up happening was that they ended up having to do these things in the middle of the night when nobody would see it, so that they could videotape it really quick and get away before they get arrested. But the idea is, well, we'll just put up a big banner, everybody will see the banner for an hour or something, and then we'll have made sure they see the banner for an hour. And this is just the same argument that I had with the leaders in the white positive sphere a long time ago. We have people's attention for less than 120 seconds, and then the anti-whites have it for the rest of their lives. So we need to get something into these people that cures them and inoculates them against the anti-whiteism. In fact, the anti-whiteism that the anti-whites bring against them ends up empowering us, empowering their resistance to that disease. That's the big difference. And I hope we continue. I expect to continue, irrespective of what the anti-whites are doing for us. I mean, let's just think about this for a second, ladies and gentlemen. If we could furtively, surreptitiously reach to all of our brothers and sisters all around the world with going free, wouldn't that be a lot better than getting out one weekend and putting up a banner for a couple, I don't know. I mean, even if you're in one of these high trafficked areas like Route 66 going into Washington, D.C., you're going to get maybe a couple thousand people that see the banner, maybe not even that, before the anti-whites tear it down and fingerprint it and find everybody who put it up and put them in jail for it. It would be much better to surreptitiously reach all of our people and then have the totality of our people. And of course, this is just a thought experiment. But then to have the totality of our people then turn a very angry eye on those anti-whites in their countries. That would be preferable to the alternative, which is, hey, let's get 120 seconds of their attention and think that we're going to make a difference. But brilliantly pointed out, Jared, that this disharmony has taken place, and it really is like the caduceus, that you have that staff running through the middle. And it's like you have the actual serpents have been drawn to one side or the other. They're completely amorphous. There's no uniformity in the spirit of Western man. And that is where a lot of this spiritual sickness, this is what we call the white noir, is coming from.
Yeah, indeed. That's something I don't hear people talk about too much. I mean, a lot of political philosophy and history and economics, and I understand we need to sort those things out or understand them through our frame to some degree. But it seems to me, I mean, we need everyone doing different things, of course. But if we don't have our people healthy, then what does all that matter in the end? Just like what you were saying with activism too.
Yep.
Maybe Martin wouldn't think that what you do is what he means as activity. And when he thinks of the Anglosphere, he doesn't see people doing the street action that he's done. And so that's what he equates. And, it definitely takes some guts to do some of the things that they've done. I'm not taking anything away from it, as you just mentioned as well. You just gave him kudos.
Mm-hmm.
But
absolutely celebrate those efforts. And you have here something, Jared, that you can speak to, and that we're actually saying here. Here you have the great J.C. Stalling is here, and great to see you, noting that Brittany Pettibone was kicked off of Instagram for merely posting a photo of Martin. Now, ladies and gentlemen, what good have you done for our people if you become such an identifiable commodity as Satan himself, that everywhere you go, every bank turns away from you, who knows in the future, maybe grocery stores, you have gone out there with these 120-second efforts and then disappeared, and everyone around you gets disappeared because of that infamy that you then hold in the civilization, the society. You have done very little good. So he would be certainly, Martin, much more effective if he was less known and was passing on something that could then be passed on to others. He can't give that 120 seconds in front of that sign to you, and then you give that 120 seconds of viewing to someone else. That's it. It can only be passed once from those who post the sign to your eyes, and that's all. It's over. That's why it has to be something that empowers these people so that they can grow and then pass it on to others. Jared.
Well, going on the instinct for freedom and kicking back that I started speaking about a few minutes ago, not to say that any action we commend just because someone's taking action. Obviously, sometimes people take very destructive actions. So not saying that, but in the case of what we're talking about, obviously what Martin was doing, it wasn't like it was some foolhardy endeavor or violent or anything like that where he's going to hurt himself or other people. What I will say that I understand the impetus, the drive to want to do something, and a lot of our guys are going to want to do something, and so whatever resources he had available and whatever was in his purview and whatever his talents are, it funneled into the kind of advocacy, the certain style that he was doing there with the generation identity thing. So, and I don't know the whole story. I don't know all the details. I don't know everything they've ever done. So I don't want this to become some kind of indictment where people think we're making some big official statement on Martin Sellner. So I should just say I don't know much. I don't know every little detail of what Martin Sellner's done. And again, I certainly commend and appreciate the raw instinct, at least, to want to do something.
Right, without question.
And you've had the benefit, Jason, of being involved in this since you were a very young man, and you've been able to study different techniques, things that worked, things that didn't work, make observations. I know you have a very methodical mind, so you were able to take notes on this and strategize and build a vision of what you wanted to do and take the best and test things and discard what didn't work. Have older mentors, again, take what you could from them, discard what didn't work. So you've had a journey. This has been your life's work to do all this, to write the books, to come up with the lexicon, to come up with the strategies, to come up with the psychological defenses. So to a young man who's seeing his nation, is seeing his wider civilization under attack and doesn't know what to do, again, I certainly can sympathize with that basic drive just to do something. And again, as long as it's not something that is against our morality and it's something that is very foolhardy and violent, in general terms, I can certainly understand that instinct, that drive to want to do something.
Yeah.
And hopefully what he's done has inspired other people. Again, I don't know everything about Martin Sellner, so please don't take this as some kind of a grand statement. We salute people that are doing things and doing the best they can, as long as it accords, as Jason, as you've said, and it's articulated something that an instinct of mine. So I take your words, they work. Something I heard you say early on when we started working together. It's, when people are white positive and they do and say things that accord with my sensibility, my morality, then I support them.
Yep. Yeah, without question. Very well said. And we had J.C. Stalling coming in with another piece of information about the individual in New Zealand who had contributed some money, and I think that was the sort of the coup de grace for the Sellners, because they were already on the run, if you will, from the anti-white regime. And what ends up happening when you gain this sort of popular, and I'll just say, and I'll echo again what you said. We celebrate everything that they did that accorded with our morality for white well-being and achieved some sort of positive and lasting effect that we don't know of. But wouldn't it have been great if Martin and these other heroes had been spreading white well-being, if they had been spreading going free? Because then you would have that message that had reached those people would have been spreading through those countries right now, everywhere they had been. A defense, an immunity would have been spreading through the body of our people rather than a flash in the pan. Well, I ask you this, ladies and gentlemen, what ends up happening when you get more attention from victimizers that are inconceivably powerful, more attention than you want? You retreat, you draw back on the sorts of arguments you make, you use, and they were using the language of the victimizer. And so you end up compounding the problem that you have in helping our people to go free. And so we see that as an inevitability, and it's perfectly understandable. I mean, you can imagine it's hard enough for us Every time we turn around, there's another strike, there's another limiting, there's another censor off another platform, there's another threat. It's endless. So having a scenario where you have step up, where countries are saying, well, we're going to take all your things. We're going to take all of your computers. We're going to take all your phones. And we absolutely commiserate with Martin and his wife in those very trying times.
Yeah. And he's over in Austria doing work in Europe. And there's certain nuances about what is going on the ground there that I'm not privy to. So keep that in mind.
There are certainly there are plenty of things. I mean, and Jared, you said it right here. We don't have, I mean, just on Sunday, I had forgotten what this guy's name was. I had to ask the chat. I was like, what's that guy's name again that married? So we don't know all of the details about what's going on with these people. We don't know all of their stances. We don't know any of that. We're only speaking to what we know. And it may be more or less. But we do know this, that when it comes to reaching out to our people, there are vehicles that have been tried and talk about beating a dead horse to death. It's just done. It's finished. It doesn't work. And if anything, we need to learn, just as we had Skulk when I was on with the South African show the other day. And he was saying, look, the people they're ripe for saving themselves. They just don't have going free. So they continue to think in terms of the anti-white narrative. They continue to use their lexicon. They're never going to crawl out of that mire. So he just essentially gave me 2 hours to talk. Just please tell them about going free so they can get on the road. And I received a deluge of emails and direct messages, everything from South African brothers and sisters down in South Africa saying, thank you. So let's hope now that this curative contagion begins to spread there so that we don't have the scenario like we had 2 decades ago, where Dr. Pierce, returns from South Africa and says, there's no hope for them down there. They're getting ritualistically murdered, our brothers and sisters down there, and they still want to have non-white people in their homes. They still want to have them tuck them in at night. So there's no hope. We don't want to have that happen anymore. We want to have the next visit we make down to South Africa be one where we say, wow, they're leading the way. They're going free. They're forming a robust identity against anti-whiteism, a story of their own, rather than living in the story of the anti-whites. That's what we want to see for the future. That's a hope for all of our brothers and sisters around the world. So plenty of good stuff though to talk about.
Would you say, I have a question.
Yeah.
That occurred to me. This word sometimes has not the best connotation, only because it's a little bit associated with kind of touchy-feely psychology, kind of the certain strands of psychology that might not accord with us. But it's a good term, and I use it. I think it's very important, given everything that we've been talking about, and accords with our worldview. The word is boundaries. Obviously, it has overlap with the word borders as well. There's so much talk about sovereignty and borders as nations, but basically boundaries are your borders as a person. The energy that you let in, or the stories, the narratives, as you said, Jason, that you allow to take hold in your own mind and start to direct your life and seep into your subconscious. Would you say, I know it's hard to whittle things down to something so simple, but would you say that in a certain regard, that going free is you're helping people form new boundaries and assert their own boundaries again, and that Western people psychologically and emotionally have their boundaries are very hazy and confused?
Yeah, I think there's you could speak of the process in that way, that it's sort of the boundaries are the edges of the pages in the story that we're writing, where we are the heroes, and anything that we can fit between the four corners of those pages becomes that story, where we are the good guys, where our history is noble and heroic, and where the anti-whites, and I was saying this on Sunday, if Martians came here to attack planet Earth, we would call them anti-whites. I wouldn't care what they wanted to call themselves. They would be anti-white because they would be harming us. And this would further weld us together as a people. So, yeah, absolutely, without question, it's setting up new boundaries, new vistas, new cityscapes, new skies, new heavens for us to explore, and taking us completely out of the anti-white narrative, where we are trapped in this hole surrounded by the punji stakes of guilt, of shame, white guilt and shame, and these mean pathogens of so many varieties, taking us completely from there to something heroic and glorious. That is one of the biggest differences, and that's one of the things that is hardest to get a person to finally grapple with. We have people, Jared, that say, wow, I've been going free for 6 months. I've been going free for a year. And I finally got my head around that we're making our own story. We're not in their story anymore. I finally get it, that this is what it means now. And when it hits them, and if it's going to be different for everybody, it obviously has some to do with how sick you are with white noir, what your innate talents are, a lot of things. But when you get it, you suddenly feel this power coursing through you, something new, something life-giving, life-preserving, and life-ennobling. That is what really is the difference between going free and all of these other vehicles of the past. Let's see, we had, I think Miss Jess Horse here writes, when you share the message of going free, of white well-being, it truly is a message of love. And if you stay in the message of recapturing our future, no one could put it down or could get around it. Exactly. And that's what we had. We were reading comments, Jared, from folks that are saying, I used it the other day. Finally, for the first time, I used some of the lexicon and dialectics the other day, and I won every argument I had in my Facebook. And these handful of Facebook anti-whites that I used to be friends with, they all immediately left because they lost the conversation. And the anti-whites hadn't ever lost the conversation before. They hadn't ever lost the argument before until now.
I encourage people to make screenshots of those.
Oh, yeah.
If you have to blur out names for privacy, do the right thing and blur them out. But we should have some kind of an archive, we can put on the site eventually if we start collecting these. And people could scroll through, get ideas about how to counter common arguments. I think that could be a good thing, something we should get the word out about.
Yeah, without question. Talking about getting the word out too, ladies and gentlemen, we are getting closer by the day. We're very close. I won't say exactly how close, but we're very close to the grand party that we'll be setting up for the release of the standalone version of Prometheus Rising, and a much easier to read. And we have a pronunciation guide in the back. Stunning artwork. Now, this is not the artist edition, which of course is going to have much more artwork inside of it. And we hope to inspire that artwork with the audio book that I plan on getting to work on as soon as we're done with the printed version, standalone version of Prometheus Rising. Very excited about this. We have the cover is magnificent, and Groundhog Fury. We have.
I can't wait to see the cover.
Oh,
explained it to me.
It is just magnificent, and just the talent coursing through that man's veins is ineffable. And we have, and then in the back there is on the inside there's another piece of artwork by Groundhog Fury, and then in the front we have Ezra, a magnificent piece of artwork you're going to see on the inside of the front of this book, ladies and gentlemen. And we hope, expect, anticipate that this will really inspire our people, teach us. It's didactic in the same way that the anti-whites use movies. And we were, Mr. George and I were talking about Matrix, the movie with Frody the other day. And I think, we did a magnificent job discussing what exactly is, what are some of the deeper meanings there without overstepping or ignoring or sidestepping what these anti-whites are doing with every single one of their projects, which is to poison you. And so if you haven't seen that, please head on over to Frody's channel. This is the, what is it? Something culture, Jared? Guide to Culture, right?
Guide to Culture, it is spelled Kulchur. I have to ask Frody if that is something from a Scandinavian language. I'm not sure.
Well, this is this will be the kind of thing, and I was saying somewhere that if anti-whites ever reviewed the story of Prometheus Rising in a book, or if it ever was made into a movie or movies or whatever, I guarantee you that they will not just be talking about the craft and the intelligence and the storyline and how intriguing and how they see parts of themselves in it and where the meaning is for them in it. And they'll be pointing out how evil these people are. This is the anti-white. So we need to be at least as smart as they when we're doing the same thing. But I'm very excited about this. It's been a long time coming, and the disease COVID-19 has really shaken things up. So we're still on track, though. We're still pushing ahead and making great gains. And Jared, I know you had regrettably on Guide to Culture, I guess Frody we had us for an hour and 20 minutes, which may have been maybe so far the second longest or third longest or something like this. But was there anything that you really wanted to say about Matrix that you didn't get a chance to say, since we had to really hyphenate that conversation?
I definitely got to the main things. Let me see. I have a note app on my phone with, 325 different note files. Not all on the Matrix, on everything I'm doing. But let's see. I'm opening up the Matrix one. I feel like there might have been something. Let me see.
We'll take a look there, and I will point out here that I think it was from Null earlier in the stream, getting a laugh out of me. I silenced the mic so you didn't hear it, but I think he said, "Lazy Susans, we're not going to harass Carol," or something like that. I thought that was hilarious. Thank you for that. Yes, they're not going to harass this sweet little old demon in the hovel where she casts fireballs out onto Western civilization in the hopes of lighting all that is good, noble, and virtuous alight. And then from her tower atop the children's hospital, looking down at all those white little children that needs to get rid of the whites in America. Top Cat saying, Jason looking in good shape on that profile photo. Oh, thank you. That's right. Yeah, okay. That's from a couple months back. Thank you for that. And let's see. Oh, Mike Anderson making a great point about talking about and undead only if it helps us to reclaim our destiny. Precisely. That's what we should be. Everything should be. That little group that is so powerless, they control all things. They think about their well-being all the time. And you all and Mr. George and I, we should be doing that when it comes to all things. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to be doctrinaire about every single thing. So, if you have a product that you've purchased at the store and it happens to have a non-white person on it, you don't need to immediately denounce the product and chuck it to the curb or whatever it is because of the anti-whiteism that's being inflicted on you by way of the advertising. But you do have to, as often as we can, work these things in. And Jared, I got to tell you, as you're looking at your notes, and then I'll open it up to you for the little bit of time that we have in the remainder of the show, that we have people writing, and this is the thing. Very few of these. Well, let me rephrase that. A great percentage of the messages that are now sent, where people are giving testimonies, a great percentage of it is, I would like it to see maybe half one of these days, is public. It's happening during the live streams. It's happening in the threads. I mean, this is why I say at some point, we have to ask folks who are content creators, functional leaders, whatever they might be. At some point you have to ask, how are you not talking about this? I mean, how many stories of wild success have to be written during live streams and written in threads, and somehow you've never heard of any of this? I mean, sometimes it gets a little bit beyond belief, but I hope that we get more of these that are public, and I try to share as many as I can. And certainly with the call-in show, Jared, it's really, folks are doing some amazing things, and they're calling in with brilliant questions and suggestions. That's what's really special about this community. And I've been saying at the beginning of Going Free, welcome to the advanced placement class in the White Positive Sphere. And that's really, we are the people who are actually doing things, not thinking about the thinking of someday doing something. But what did you find? And this is a great example, ladies and gentlemen, of the kind of a thing that we all can do if you tap into the biosphere, the spirit of the West inside of our people. Mr. George was exemplifying that in the discussion with Frody, talking about the Matrix. And so did you find anything that you feel like you weren't able to touch upon during that conversation that you would like to know?
Well, as I said, I addressed the main things that I wanted to in the time that we had. Of course, again, most of you probably know, but Frody is doing his Decameron Film Festival. So I think there are still a few left. He organized quite a cast of characters to talk about some various films. And yes, last Monday, Jason and I spoke about The Matrix. So please go check that out on Frody's Guide to Culture page. It's also cataloged on the afterparty.tv site. I found two things that were potential seeds for conversation that we didn't get to. And I don't know how much time we have in the closing minutes to get to these. One is just this general theme that you see in The Matrix of living two lives, how Keanu Reeves's character was working as a programmer, suit and tie at an office, but then by night he was in this hacker community. And then, of course, when he gets into the whole Matrix thing, there's, again, the duality of his, the physical bodies that people have in these pods versus what they're virtually experiencing in the quote-unquote Matrix as they think they're living their lives. So I think that there are themes, not to go too deeply into them now, but maybe it's something we could return to. I think that's a theme a lot of us can relate to, even though the movie wasn't explicitly about this. We are the people, and anyone who came to this early are sensitive enough. Well, I mean, there are certainly people who had it thrown in their face. Unfortunately, perhaps were even the victims of violence or attacks because of the kind of societies that we live in and what's been allowed to happen. But for those who maybe didn't have such experiences, but still had the presence of mind, the courage, all of the different faculties to come to this, you're sensitive enough that something is wrong. You're not so poisoned by all of the messages out there that you just go along with it, like the so-called bug men that just are going along to get along with all of the trappings of modernity and all the anti-white messages that have been woven into it. So this idea of living two lives and the true life, who you really are, eventually having to come out and become your real life. I think that's something a lot of us can relate to in this. People who are involved in this online community and then maybe for various reasons have to hold their tongue at work and things like that. I know that that's something people struggle with, and that the work that we're doing here, and certainly everything that you have worked out, Jason, and the psychology and the verbiage that you've developed serves that very well, is to kind of claim that power inside of you. So there's the duality. And then the other note that I had was about how Agent Smith calls humans. I mean, of course, it's a Hollywood movie, so they're going to talk about humans as all just one thing, but how we are a virus. And I've actually had conversations in real life with people many years ago who were sympathetic to or could understand that view. And I think that's a dangerous thing. I think we have to be very careful there.
Yeah, great point.
I think
Develop that all you want.
what?
I said, just develop that all you want.
No, I'll just say very quickly, actually, that the things like that ring true because we all know that the best lies have kernels of truth in them.
Mhm.
And when you hear something like that, it's not that it's wrapped up in this metaphorical, poetic language. So first of all, right then and there, it's open to interpretation. It's going to hit different people in different ways. So of course, it's nebulous enough where it'll hit a fair amount of people, and some people will walk out of the movie theater and say, "Oh yeah, maybe we are viruses." And that if that thought really seeps into you, it can be damaging. And as I mentioned, it's not like there's nothing to it. What the problem is, and this is the problem with so many points of view that are put forth in our world today. I know this has always gone on, but it seems, I don't know, I've never lived in another era, but it seems like this is a particular trapping of modernity. It's something I've spoken about from the beginning of my public advocacy. And that is, and it kind of relates to the whole split consciousness thing I spoke about at the beginning of tonight's stream with your video. And that is that it's not so much that it's wrong, it's that it's incomplete. And that in being incomplete, it's ultimately wrong. So it's, again, maybe that's just a semantics thing, but it's incomplete. The fact that Smith says we're viruses, and some of us are tempted to think we're viruses, and again, the average person is going to think is humankind or something like that. But it is especially true of the West, and there are people like Duchesne who's done work on this that show that we are people, again, it's connected to the freedom thing I spoke about before, that really seek to develop our consciousness, to be able to think about thinking, to be able to kind of transcend our own point of view or project ourselves into another point of view. That is something that is more developed in our mentality. There's very long articles about this comparing the European mind to other minds, et cetera, et cetera. You could go find that yourself if you're interested. But to stick on this whole idea of the virus thing and the fact that it's incomplete is that it's the shadow side of ultimately something that is beautiful. It's proving something that is beautiful. And that is what? That we are conscious, that we have choice, that we have agency, that we can master things in the world. And that is a creative drive. That is the result of being able to develop a certain level of consciousness, to think about thinking, or to project yourself into other situations, to have that flexibility and that nimbleness with your mind. The creative urge that is there is what makes us who we are. It's a creative force, but like anything, if it's misused or if it's not understood in its proper context, it has a shadow side. It can be destructive. A bit similar to themes we've spoken about with Laura Lee about Lord of the Rings and evil and power and the ring and the temptation of power as well. So be very careful when you hear metaphors like that, because they're tempting, because they have this little kernel of truth in them, but it's whoever is writing this, whoever is presenting this to you, is presenting this little bit of trickery. It sounds intoxicating, like you just happened upon this little secret about life, and things aren't as rosy as you were taught when you were a kid. It's very tempting, especially when you're young. Teenagers, college age kids might hear something like that. Again, I remember a couple friends of mine, well-meaning, intelligent people, But the virus thing kind of took hold in a weird way. You could say it was a mind virus itself. And I'd had conversations with people who said, oh, that whole thing about us being a virus, I kind of see that. Be very careful about that. And remember, the truth of it is only the fact that it's the shadow of something that is the light, that is beautiful, and that is our creative capability, our agency, our ability to make choice. And that's what makes us who we are. So focus on that aspect is what I would say. I don't know if you have anything to say to that.
I will. I will. Just and you're doing a fantastic developing and exploring these particular aspects, ladies and gentlemen. Again, we were able to do a little bit of this on, and while I'm talking, Jared, take a look at your notes and find whatever else you would like to look into, dig into, unpack while we have the good folks here with us tonight. These are the ones that want to stay after class has been dismissed, and there's more to learn, and they want to learn it. So we'll give these good folks a little bit more time, and happy to do it, because this is the substance of life for all heroes. I will just add to this. I mean, I maybe what I'll do is I'll just do this, because this is the kind of thing that really opens a person's mind to the precision and toxicity of mean pathogens. In the Matrix movie, and Mr. George mentioned this briefly here, and I mentioned it while we were with Frody as well. The makers of this movie put into the mouth of the good guys that we are humankind, mankind is a race. And so therefore no difference, there are no races in the anti-white narrative. There's just one race. This is a very insidious mean pathogen, and it has been gaining a greater and greater foothold. And you'll find people otherwise who are seemingly sentient, and they'll be saying the human race, and then you'll point out that it's actually a species, that it's divided into races, and they struggle because of it. Now, they put human race into the mouths of the good guys, and then they put species, the human species, into the mouths of the bad guys. So you learn there in that moment, very unlikely that you were conscious of it. Now, when you're going free and you specifically sit down to watch a movie and say, I'm going to remain conscious throughout the totality, and this is one of the exercises you have to do. Go back to those movies and see them that you've bought in the past. You're not watching that garbage anymore for the entertainment value and the poison that it gives you. Put that back, put one of those movies back in and watch that movie. And with have Go Free right in front of you, be conscious the entire time. Why are they putting these words into the mouths of these characters? Why do these characters look this way? And then you'll suddenly see these MPs everywhere. And you will have you'll have watched this mean pathogen infect you in the Matrix, and in television shows, and in books, and at classes you've been in, where the bad guys are calling us a species and the good guys are calling us a race, to the point that calling us a species feels evil. It feels ugly. It feels wrong. It feels backward. It feels like it's doing harm. And calling us a race feels good. It feels beautiful. It feels like you're doing right. It feels like you are in accord with all that is moral in the world. This is how you begin to really tap into an understanding of MPs and how deeply ingrained they are, how easily they slide under the radar. And then, because we live the majority of our lives in our subconscious minds, the authority over your life that they wield. So a very important thing there to appreciate when it comes to, just if that's the one MP that we talk about that I mentioned tonight, it's that one about the Matrix. Mr. George, did you have some other notes that you wanted to develop?
I didn't really have anything else except the funny note that for people who lament gun rights and self-protection all the time, how insanely violent Hollywood is. And I know most of us have been desensitized to it. And I'm not trying to sound holier than thou or anything. I don't watch much out of Hollywood at all, and I haven't for many years now. So there are scenes where they could have just snuck in, like someone mentioned the security guard scene in the lobby in the chat a moment ago. And it's just a bloodbath. And you say to yourself, for how history is going to have a fun time with our era, the historians, right? Our historians in the future. For all these people who wanted to disarm us, the amount of gratuitous violence in Hollywood, it reveals the mindset of what they would like to do.
Mm-hmm.
It's my eyes glaze over.
Yeah.
I'm not interested in that. All these gratuitous. Sometimes there's like a cool set piece, Evan, like an action movie that could be clever. That's different, but just the shooting, banging, people dying. It's quite the contrast when you think about Hollywood's politics versus what they present. And just even from a young age, even our kids, parents don't think much of a preteen or a very young teenager whose mind's still very impressionable going to a movie, and just half of the movie is just carnage.
Mm-hmm.
And you just walk out of the movie theater with your popcorn and you don't think much of it. Could you imagine showing this to people 75, 100 years ago, that this is what parents would be watching with their children, as if this is normal?
Mm-hmm.
And those are images that are seeping into their minds, playing over when they close their eyes.
Yeah, precisely. That was the thing that, and I said during our discussion with Frody that, and I was speaking for all of us without even having to ask the two of you, that even though the Matrix is an entertaining movie and largely entertaining because of these combat scenes, we absolutely reject violence and the idea that violence could accomplish anything positive in any way, shape, or form. So we reject the depiction of it, even in the movie. And honestly, when you get away from media, you get away from this anti-white entertainment, and you come back to it, I was floored by just the wanton murder and how easily in these stories characters are just murdered, and there's no compunction, there's no thought about it whatsoever. And that's what I was saying there with the security guards. They just murdered them all. None of these, and that strikes you when you're living in the real world, and when you're not, when you're living in the anti-white narrative, that just is a pipeline right to your subconscious mind, and it is inuring you. It is making you jaded to this sort of thing. And then what happens? Well, what happens is they're able to say to you, well, terrorism and pandemics is just the way of a city. It's just the way of a big city. It's just the way things are. So you just have to accept that this is just the way things are. And people end up saying, well, I guess I accept that this is the way things are. Except this is not the way things are. We, as Western kind, have created a giant nursery room for a civilization where the jungle does not seep in. It only is able to come into our lives when anti-whites enable it to come into our lives. And it's getting worse. And getting worse by the day, getting worse by the week, by the year, because of anti-whiteism. And this illusion is of safety, of security, of things. The lights are always going to come on. Everything is dependable that our people have created and maintained. This illusion is falling apart. And this pandemic and the ones that are yet to come, but of course refer to the WHO for all information on pandemics. This is the kind of thing that is and should wake people up to the fact that this system, this anti-white system, is not dependable. It is not the Western civilization of many years ago, where it had been far fewer bricks had been taken out of it by the anti-whites. This is now a place that is becoming increasingly the house on sand, as the cliche goes. And we will recapture our destiny, and we will do it with the rest of the folks in the white positive sphere that want to come clear and see that, well, let's get busy being positive, making things happen, or we will do it without them. And we will reach our brothers and sisters in the broad sweeping masses of their normalcy, and they will be able to come to going free. We will not disparage them because they think about their trucks when they lose their jobs. They think about how they're going to keep the vehicle from being repoed, or they think about how they don't want to have their tools stolen as criminality rises, or they want to get out with all of the, the cliches of antiquated nationalism. They are in that position because anti-whites have put them there, and they will only be there, continue to be there, if we don't get going free to them. And they then learn that, well, that Statue of Liberty or that English bulldog or whatever it is in whatever Western country you're in only has meaning if we are here to give it meaning. And these hollow plastic meanings that have been infused in these things that at one point in our existence had texture and were palpable and had life and blood flowing through them. They're now hollow and meaningless trinkets, just simulacra from a healthier period in our people's history, and that we are going to breathe the spirit of the West back into these things and reclaim our destiny. So, Mr. George, if you have any other words you'd like to share from the movie, or some news about stuff coming up, please, anything you want to talk about, and we will see if anybody else has anything to say in the live chat. And before I pass it over to you, I'll just say a big hello to the great sea god Poseidon, I see has shown up. I don't know how long he's been here, but good to see you here, friend. And so I will pass it over to you, good sir, and I'm going to see if anybody has any questions or comments before we get out of here, but the floor is yours.
Well, hello, Poseidon. It's good to see you, brother. We'll have to talk soon. Yes, we are wrapping up. Just a little short check-in to say hi to everybody. Be a point of, we can have you be able to rally around, check in on these Tuesday nights. With the violence in the movies, it just had me thinking that it desensitizes young people to actual storytelling about characters as well. That's not to say, especially for young boys, that there's risk and adventure and fight scenes. It's not like we're saying that doesn't have a place. Clearly, though, I think we all know what we're talking about with the gratuitous Hollywood violence, and what you were saying, where characters are just shot, where their essence is taken away from them. They're not real flesh and blood people. They're just like sacks of potatoes. They're just discarded. That is the kind of desensitization. But what I'm concerned about too is that it cheapens actual storytelling, where you'll have people will discard or not take into account a movie or a story that is just about characters or about the day-to-day life of a family or something like that, where there could be a lot of lessons and there could be a lot of role models, but because there's not all of this gratuitous action and violence and gore, that it doesn't interest people, because they've been fed this steady diet of all the Hollywood garbage. For anyone that's coming in, we're just saying how funny it is that politically Hollywood is so anti-gun, and yet all of their movies, people are just shooting each other up like it's nothing, like it's a joke. Like you can shoot someone in real life and then they pop back up, like they didn't really die. Like it's just a video game. You come back in the next round. That's the kind of discarding of life that we see in these scenes, in these gratuitous Hollywood scenes, these shoot 'em up scenes. I know I often just prefer, and sometimes I like foreign films that aren't coming out of Hollywood, that are coming out of Europe, that are just about people, the stories about real people that you can relate to their lives, and it makes you reflect on your life. Maybe you learn a little lesson, or you relate to the people in the movie, and that should be enough. A good story, just about people, human interest piece, that should be able to be enough. And the fact that we've been desensitized to those things is terrible, but we'll have to change all that. Vol Hollywood.
Yes, that's right. Well, any final words on where folks can find you and when we're going to be with them again and the projects, that sort of thing?
Well, we'll have a tap later in the week. My site is thegreatorder.com. So that's where all of my catalog of videos and skits, writings, all kinds of things, contact is all there, ways to support. It's I made some tweaks recently, so it's even a little easier to navigate and look through. And I have a mailing list there now too. So going to be probably doing some more things soon. As I mentioned, I have the Red Ice video coming out. I have a book project I'm helping Tony of White People's Press on right now with some different contributors, and that's going to be a very fun thing, very nourishing piece for our people that'll be coming out in the next few months, I think. But yeah, I think a lot more media. I'm looking forward to rolling up my sleeves and doing what I really is in my nature, which is being creative, doing the culture creation thing. I'm very inspired by all of the activity right now. And I've been clearing my schedule so that I can work and do some things, keep doing everything that you know me for, but start doing some new things too. So that's been fun. And we'll just have to keep posted as to, on social media and all the ways of being in contact. I'll tell you guys about soon for updates and new things. But oh yeah, I should also say the afterparty.tv is me and Jason's site for this show. So always check the first page, the show info page, about where you can watch the show, upcoming shows. And usually you can watch this stream right on our site, embedded on that show info page. Right now, the channel we usually use for that, associated with the Entropy account, has a strike. So you can always donate via Entropy. You can always ask a question, have a new question waiting in the queue for the next show. You can always use Entropy 24/7, even when we're not broadcasting. But you cannot watch it. You couldn't watch it tonight because of the strike. But other than that, I think that is all of the housekeeping.
Thank you very much, brother. Yes, and folks, we have to be aware that things at D Live, and let me open the chest over on D Live for all of the good folks who have stayed with us this show, this after hours. Thank you all for being here.
Do we have more Ninja Guineas and jets to add to our garage and hangar?
Well, you know what? Look, I'm not sure exactly how to operate D Live, but I do see that JC Stalling has given 100. It looks like 100 Leno points, if I'm reading that properly. So thank you, JC Stalling. And I think possibly the way it works is those who give and those who comment are the ones who are in the running for the chest. So JC Stalling came in second. Mr. North, I should say North Fork. I'm trying to say it in a way that it doesn't sound like something else. But JC Stalling came in second there. So congratulations to everybody. And North Fork said, great point about something. Thank you very much for that. Thank you all for being there on D Live with us. And congratulations to everybody that won some Leno points. And just to say, ladies and gentlemen, that we could be gone off of D Live tomorrow. The anti-whites, can decide at any time. And this is, kind of circle back to where this conversation got started as we close it. And one of the things that we like to do, so we have that perfect harmony, is that if Mr. George and I were to decide suddenly that we are going to go and climb to the top of, say, the Capitol building or something in one of the state states across the United States, and hang a big banner and have some flares going. Rest assured that the work that we would be doing for White Wellbeing would be over immediately. So we want to be as present as we need to be to spread Going Free as quickly as we can in the time that we have, and to do this in a way that only attracts the attention from the anti-white regime that there is no escaping. There is no good for Mr. George and myself to go and stand out in the middle. Maybe we get out in the middle of Constitution Avenue and he holds a banner on one side and me on the other, and we got our little flares going. That would be the end of it. Sure, there would maybe be 100-200 people that would see that, but it would be all over, and they would put us underneath of the prison. So let's continue to be smart as we serve white well-being, and let's continue to get to those people out there in the white positive sphere who are smart, who are courageous, who are dedicated, and let's get going free. Let's get white well-being into their hands, into their minds, into their hearts, into their spirits, so that they can take something that is working, and with it magnify their efforts 1,000 times. JK160, as we're wrapping up, has written, Andrew Breitbart used to say Hollywood is more damaging than what happens in government. Well, absolutely, because it's deciding the storyline in which what happens in government takes place. So he's accurate there. He's prescient there. They interpolate into every event, real or fabricated, every piece of anti-white propaganda that they need to accomplish those goals. Let's see, Raucous Drift says, Saving Private Ryan, I know that opening scene is supposed to be a memorial to those who fought, but it really bothered me. Yeah, it was a little bit, it was quite gut-wrenching. Also saying that you don't own Going Free yet, but you're planning on getting it. Well, thank you very much. And please, once you have it, if you have any questions, do not hesitate to ask. If you have any suggestions, do not hesitate to give them. And remember that the book is not like a talisman. It doesn't show up and you just put it someplace like a battery, and you hook up your leads to it and suddenly you are empowered. You have to go through, it's a workbook. You have to do the exercises. And you may be like some who think, well, it doesn't seem like it could work. I don't know if it could work. It's so different that I'm not going to try. And then you finally give in a little bit, and then a little bit more, and then suddenly an entire new vista opens up to you, a way of thinking that you hadn't anticipated, and access to a spirit of the West that you didn't even know was there. So do not buy the book, give it a quick read and set it down. Do the exercises, do them again, do them again. Plenty of people will tell you that they've gone through the book and they still find themselves, and that is because we're human beings. It's impossible not to. I am the exact same. You find themselves slipping back into the old words, their story, because that's what's all around you. We have to help each other in this respect. Let me take a quick look over here just to make sure we didn't miss anybody. And I want to say that it's been another magnificent after hours, kind of a laid back, more like it's late night somewhere, which we will do here in the near future. And if you are curious about what that is, please rewind, as they used to say in the old days, the VHS days and the beta days. Rewind once the stream is done and listen to the beginning. And Mr. George describes It's Late Night Somewhere to a T. But it's been a joy, as it always is, to be with all of you tonight, Going Free. And we will look forward to seeing you later this week. I will be on PWR tomorrow, and Mr. George and I will be on tap, and we'll have a sterling guest. It's been wonderful, and you all please have a good night.